Years doing the show now who channel Lady Diana, John Lennon, President Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and the list goes on. And I love asking them that question because I never get the same reply. Is there a central theme of questions that people ask Einstein about? Are they mostly scientific, or do people actually ask about their own lives?
Both. It runs the gamut. I would say the most consistent questions are about the nature of reality. Mm-hmm. That people are so right now into quantum physics and, what is this, physics and spirituality are kind of merging, Greg Brayton and all of that. So most of the bulk of the question is about reality and the nature of reality and our relationship to it. But when people come for private readings, which I do over the phone, they ask a lot of personal questions, and the answers provide them with basically step-by-step instructions as to how to have a new approach to those old problems that then transform them on an everyday basis. And I have thousands of people through the years who have told me the revolutionary effect that this process that Einstein has brought forth has had on their lives. I mean, miracles and physical transformations. I had a woman, a lot of people use this process to deal with their depression, or I have a woman in Raleigh, North Carolina right now who's using this process of Einstein to help heal her diabetes. So there's every level across the board that people apply this information to that has a fairly profound effect.
Is there a message that Einstein would like the world to know? Is there something he'd like to tell the world?
I think, beside from this body of work, that he would want to say, it all begins within you. And anything else is kind of an illusion that it doesn't. And so that people can empower themselves and know themselves and change themselves in order to make the world a better place.
What does Einstein say the other side, or wherever he is like? Does he make a comparison with that reality to the reality that he knew on this side?
Well, actually, what he says right in the beginning of the book is that after he lost his physical body, he realized that I think in his time they called it the ethers. Mm-hmm. I think now they call it dark energy and dark matter, that 90% of the universe is really unaccounted for. Yeah. And when he lost his physical body and became pure energy and consciousness, he realized that this was a very familiar place because it was very much like dreams and imagination. And that goes back to the beginning of our conversation, where with music, you go into the nothingness, and out of your just imagination you pull melody and meaning and words. And I think that's what his first impression was, not only that there was this amazing order to these multiple complex systems, but that it was a very familiar place, this afterlife, and that part of us, part of you, part of me, energetically, even as we speak, exists in that state. So that afterlife really isn't, you're living and now you're dead. It's a part of you even when you're alive, that when the body, E equals MC squared, well, right. You take away the mass, and just mathematically the energy increases, exponentially. So it was very familiar to him.
It's like we go through life being the caterpillar, and when we go on to the next part of our journey, we go through the metamorphosis and we become a butterfly.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
Exonation Barbara with us, our special guest. Her book is entitled Imaging Einstein, Essays on the M-Theory, World Peace, and the Science of Compassion. Her website is www.barbarawith.com. That's www.barbarawith.com. Now, how did you come to travel the world teaching and training Conrev and channeling Einstein?
I had the opportunity when my first book came out, or when the book first came out, to appear at an event that was held by the Crimson Circle, which is Jeff Hoppe and Linda Benio, and they channel, and they have a following around the world and a beautiful live internet calming response system. But I started to get invitations from everywhere. And I thought, this will keep me busy for about 5 years. So that was 3 years ago, and now I'm still going. I'll be going back to Norway and Bucharest, maybe Bulgaria and Austria this winter, and doing the work. It's very exciting. People are ready.
Why do you think people are more interested in channeling psychic phenomenon, the paranormal, at this time of the world's juncture than at any other time in recorded history?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is because this consciousness raising, quote unquote, that we've all been engaged in for years is really finally starting to kick in. And our expanded awareness, our ability to take in more information, to understand greater, we're all bombarded every day by so much knowledge and information. I think also that the world is there's a kind of a out of control, the weather and it's kind of a scary place, and people want to know more. They want to know that there's more than just this finite world. But I also think that physics and spirituality are on a natural conversion path to unification, and it's time for the world to start thinking in a more unified way. A lot of people in the world are working towards these things, but you never see them on the news. You don't see them necessarily, in the streets. You don't know who they are, but there's a lot of people who just want to know why am I here, and how is matter created? Natural part of this evolution. Heaven knows where we're going, but very exciting time.
What does Einstein say about the nuclear thread that the world is teetering on these days?
Well, he put out a paper, actually posthumously. Bertrand Russell and he were working on a paper at the end of his life called the Russell-Einstein Manifesto that got read in July of 1955 in London. And it was kind of a prophetic paper about, if nuclear power, and this is 55, so if nuclear weapons continue like this, we're pretty much going to destroy the Earth. And I think if in his in the place of afterlife, when he died, he was so obsessed not only with finding a unified field, but how his work had impacted the planet, what with Hiroshima and Nagasaki and such, that he brought this pressing need into the afterlife, which was a lot of why I think he worked so hard to find a way to get this information back out, because theoretically this conflict revolution that he's created and has tested with me and my associates for many years reduces this internal conflict that then doesn't have to manifest outside as far as wars or fighting, or you deal with it on this inner level, and it naturally brings a peaceful environment. So I think this is his legacy to answer what he might have done while he was alive that might have helped promote, propagate nuclear weapons, knowing that you can't really, he tried the government, he tried the international world government and realized that people were never going to get along, so you had to start with one person at a time.
Did he ever have any, did he ever have any regrets with his part in the development of nuclear annihilation?
He did. And he clearly says in the book that he was a pacifist. He was a very vocal pacifist for a very long time until Hitler. And then he was torn because he didn't think he could just stand by and not, be an activist for peace. And so part of his incentive to get the government to start the development of nuclear weapons was because he was afraid that the German government was already ahead of it. I don't think he ever imagined that we would do that and then turn around and bomb Japan. And that experience of bringing the nuclear weapons into reality and those two bombs going off, I think, just completely sickened him in his soul. And he probably didn't live the last 10 years of his life with anything other than the obsession about how could you change this, you know. So it's really brilliant, I think, that he's come back to present this process that's so effective and revolutionary. Now the challenge is to inspire people to want to live that worldview for themselves.
Does someone on the other side have the ability to look into the future?
Yes, to a certain extent. I think there's potentials, you know, mathematical equations, possibilities, probabilities, you know, sure bets, and kind of predict. I know that in my readings, I don't tout myself as someone who's going to, you know, predict when your boyfriend's coming back, but there certainly have been a lot of prophetic information through the years that is stunning to me.
All right, stand by, Barbara. You and I have to take our final break. Exonation Barbara With is our special guest. www.barbarawith.com. She's the author of Imaging Einstein, Essays on M-Theory, World Peace, and the Science of Compassion. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we do our wrap-up for tonight, Monday, September the 13th in the year 2010. We'll be back. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.